We're live in Cincinnati, Ohio for Sports Talk is McKimmie on Wild Card Weekend. And Mike, we just got back into our rental. We're staying, of course, in a luxurious Shaw Rental Enterprises this weekend in Cincinnati. Just got back. We're still both soaked because that was just a cold, rainy night in Cincinnati. But we were there for, a miracle game with the Pittsburgh Steelers pulling out an 18-16 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals.
Dave, I don't believe I've ever seen one team just implode at the end of a playoff game like the Bengals did. Fumble, late hit, unsportsmanlike conduct, field goal, Steelers win.
Well, there was so many stories to the end of this game. About a minute and a half left in the game. Cincinnati had just gotten the ball back on an interception. Pittsburgh had 3 timeout. Looks like Cincinnati's going to try to run the clock down and possibly get their first playoff victory since 1990. I mean, it looked like it was in the bag. But then just from a fumble to Pittsburgh getting the ball back, Ben Roethlisberger, who had been out of the game the entire fourth quarter with a shoulder injury,
and who had debris thrown on him by this angry, raucous crowd in Cincinnati, I might add.
And it was not only a raucous crowd in Cincinnati, Mike, but it was also...
They were angry.
It was the game on the field, and I'll tell you, of course, you that follow us on Sports Talk is McKimmie, I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I'll tell you, I was a little concerned leaving Cincinnati tonight because the fans were not happy. It was, a lot of people were cold, they were tired, they were angry because the Cincinnati Bengals had one of the biggest, it was a collapse of truly epic proportion, Mike. That last minute and a half, you got to think, what's going to happen after this game now? Marvin Lewis goes to 0-7 now as the Bengals coach. An epic collapse like this at home, which a game they should have won. Could we possibly see a coaching change in Cincinnati from this game?
Well, Dave, there's going to be some calls for it. It's going to be the same story. Won the division title, failed in the first round. Were they 0-7? Their last under Marvin Lewis.
0-7 in the playoffs now.
And the fans were literally crying in the stands after that ball game. And as you were leaving, with your Pittsburgh Steelers garb on, there are a few profanities thrown your way, Dave, and we had to get you out of there quick. Those were some angry fans, and I imagine some of that anger is going to be pointed straight towards Marvin Lewis and definitely Pac-Man Jones. He's crying over there on the bench at the end of the game. He may find himself finally, after all these years of all the problems that he's gone through in the NFL, seem to have licked them. He might cry himself right out of Cincinnati. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think this is the type of game that there's going to be some changes from. It was a game that was pretty much dominated the first 3 quarters by Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was leading, 15-0 till about halfway through the third quarter, seemingly dominating the game. Then Cincinnati became re-energized after Roethlisberger went out with the injury. But then just at the end of the game, it seemed too like Cincinnati was playing a little cocky when they had their big interception just about, a minute before they ended up fumbling the ball right back to Pittsburgh. Their players were running into the tunnel. You would have thought they had the game clinched, but you could definitely tell the difference in a franchise that has not won a playoff game since 1990 in the way that they handled it. Complete disrespect from the fans. And this isn't just because I'm a Steeler fan. The fans throwing debris at Ben Roethlisberger while he's getting carted off the field at the end of the third quarter, just absolutely ridiculous. The players, the organization just has to be completely embarrassed by their performance of their team, and I think Coach Marvin Lewis is going to take the brunt of that. And, of course, this was the second wild card game today, Mike.
Yeah, we had both home teams lose today.
Yeah, both home teams lost today. Of course, the first game not quite as exciting. The Kansas City Chiefs steamrolled the Houston Texans. And, what would you say to describe that game, Mike?
Just ugly. Just ugly. It had to be one of the worst, not just playoff games, but just one of the most boring games. But really exciting out of the start. Mal Davis, former Razorback, 106-yard kickoff return to start the game. First time in playoff history in the over 80 years since the NFL has been, having postseason games that it has begun with a kickoff return for a touchdown. And it just pretty much went all downhill from there.
Well, the Chiefs have to be so excited getting their first playoff victory since, probably when Joe Montana was quarterbacking for them.
22 years?
Yeah, I think it was, 93? So, that'd be 22 years, and Montana was their quarterback that last victory. And the Cincinnati Bengals, I really thought, going in our segment tonight here at Shaw Rental Enterprises, which another shout-out to them, they take such good care of us. Shaw Rental Enterprises are all across the country, but I thought our story tonight that we'd be doing out of our Shaw Rental Enterprise would be about the Chiefs and the Bengals finally both getting their first playoff victories in over 20 years, and instead we're talking about one of the most epic collapses of all time by the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right, and I got to say that of all the luxurious SRE rentals that we have stayed in, Dave, I think this tops them all. This is beautiful. We can see the Ohio River from our porch as we are giving this podcast. It's raining outside. It's been a nasty night. The mood has been nasty from the fans. Mother Nature has been nasty. The play on the field was nasty as well. And it's just been that kind of night here in Cincinnati, but it sure is beautiful in this luxurious rental again. We got to, give a shout out to Joey Shaw.
Shaw Rental Enterprises, he always takes care of us. But speaking of getting taken care of, let's talk a little bit about Vontaze Burfict real quick before we end this segment. He was the one who had just a terrible penalty on Antonio Brown with less than a minute to go in the game that actually started all the chaos.
No, that's
a complete cheap shot.
That sets up the whole Pac-Man Jones. If that doesn't happen, then the Pac-Man Jones unsportsmanlike conduct doesn't happen, and instead of a 35-yard field goal, they're still back, towards midfield. Changed everything.
It just the tension that was on the field the last couple minutes. Cleveland just did not know how to win in a playoff game. They didn't know how to handle the playoff pressure, and they ended up just collapsing. And now next week, of course, Pittsburgh, they're going to Denver. But is Roethlisberger going to be able to play? Is Antonio Brown going to be out? Plus, they still got the running back that's out. So a running mash unit is what the Pittsburgh Steelers are right now. And then in the other game, we got Kansas City going up to New England. Can they knock off Tom Brady and the New England Patriots? Those are going to be the stories going into next week, Mike.
Yeah, and I think both teams. I think, depending on how things work out with Roethlisberger, they got a chance. When I was looking at the playoff field in the AFC, looking, anybody's got a chance, and anybody could come out and be in the Super Bowl from this. And, I think the Chiefs, with their 11th straight win, those guys, they are playing united as a team. And they are in the top 5 in points on offense, yards allowed on defense, points scored on defense. They have just really hit about as well of a track as you can hit. And, they're still on it. And, part of me is like looking at 11th game win streak and like, okay, at some point it has to end. But maybe it ends, with the trip to the Super Bowl. We'll just have to see, because they can beat Kansas City. They can beat Denver. Right? Well, they're not playing Denver. My bad. They can beat New England. And Pittsburgh can beat Denver. Even, I think, if Roethlisberger is not 100%, because as we know, Peyton Manning isn't 100%, which is another, story that we could get into. And we probably will later in the show. But I think right now, we need to go to a break, Dave.
Yeah, we're going to go to break, but just take this thought. The last time the Bengals won a playoff game, Sam Weish was the coach. Boomer Esiason was the quarterback. It's going to be another year of waiting for the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll be right back on Sports Talk is McKinney.